okay to start? Okay, I guess it is.
Stand by 1 second.
Oh, okay.
You are set, sir.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and let me call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock approximately, and we have an agenda, which you probably all have looked at. I am going to add in a item under new business because we got a letter from Curtis Armbruster about the Nakoma drain. So we want to discuss that. Probably you've all kind of seen that letter that was sent out from Leroy. And anybody else would like to add any items to the agenda?
Do you want to also talk about Neil Bowlby's letter?
Well, that I kind of assumed we'll be talking about that under the rules of procedure.
I see, okay.
Yeah. But for sure we want to talk about it, yeah. Okay, like to get a motion to approve the agenda. You want to raise your hand? Okay, Jim, second, Rose. Okay, all in favor, raise your hands, please. Okay, it looks good. Okay, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes. Does anybody want to make any suggestions to change the minutes? Seeing no hands raised, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Just raise your hand. Okay, Tom, Jim, okay. All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Let's see. Moving on to the minutes are approved. Moving on to public remarks. I believe we have some folks, or at least one person that'd like to make some public remarks.
Generally, we will allow people to dial into the 517-349-1232 if they're listening via Comcast Home TV and or the internet stream. Alternatively, people are welcome to raise their hands, and we can, of course, enable them to speak in the meeting itself, whichever is more convenient.
Okay, I guess we don't have anybody at this time. Of course, we have an opportunity at the end to get public comments also. And
John, can I just suggest Neil was intended to join us for public comments. Perhaps since we're taking up this later in the agenda, if he joins us, maybe we can let him say a couple words under that agenda item, if others feel that's appropriate.
Does anybody have a problem with that? That sounds good. Thank you, Leroy. And Leroy, would you give us an update on the regional environment Zoom sharing on August 11th? What's up? What's planned?
Well, we have at least a half a dozen folks from other communities to share. This is an idea that I think you brought up, John, as part of one of our goals through the climate sustainability plan. And I don't have an exact number, but the number will sort of dictate how much time each of us has to share. If there's a representative from our commission that would like to say a few words on behalf of Meridian Township, that would be delightful. I can share the link that was created. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, John?
No, you know, I was hoping, Leroy, that you might kind of represent the township because you have such a broad knowledge of all the different activities. But if somebody else wants to do that, that's great too.
I'm willing to kick it off if somebody else wants to chime in, given our time constraint with the number of people that have signed up to participate. Thanks for the reminder, because I do need to send out a reminder to people, and I can include all of you if you'd like to tune into that regional update.
A couple questions, Leroy. Will you have, did you say how many people want to speak, or don't we know that yet?
I have to check, but I think it's at least a half a dozen, but it's probably closer to a dozen.
Oh, okay. So that means everybody, will you be sending out like an agenda with the names and municipalities kind of listed so we kind of know who's on first and who's on second?
Good suggestion.
Yeah.
I'll try and do that later this week. I'm still catching up from being gone a week, but yeah, thank you for the reminder.
Well, I guess too, once we all get the invitation, feel free to send it to anybody that you think might be interested in finding out about what's happening in the area. Or, so I certainly plan to kind of send it around to some folks that I think will be very interested in what's being done by local governments in the area. Thank you, Leroy.
In addition to local governments, there's a couple of nonprofits that have expressed some interest in sharing their projects, which are government related, but just want to give you the heads up on that.
Super. That sounds great. I think it sounds like we're going to have a very good series of presentations. Certainly more than I kind of expected. That's great. Okay, thank you, Leroy. And status of our new, well, maybe, do we have a new commissioner? Luca or Leroy?
We're still waiting official approval by the trustees, but it looks like Luca will be our next commissioner. I think everyone's excited about his involvement, including the trustees. But welcome, Luca, and feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like.
Hi, thank you. My name's Luca, and I'm really excited to get started on the board.
Luca, could you give us a little background about your activities to date?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Earth Club at Okemos High School, and so that's what I've been doing so far, but we don't have much to do since school's been out. So hoping to start that back up next year. We don't know with online school, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, and what's going to be what grade will you be going into this fall, hopefully, when school's open?
I will be going into a sophomore year, so 10th grade.
Super. Okay, thank you. And thank you for your interest in serving on the commission. This is great. Let's see. Environmental Commission rules of procedure. And Leroy, do you want to kind of give us a little background on that? And we don't have the gentleman who wanted to speak, but you might want to summarize some of his comments.
Yeah, about a year ago, we had revised our rules and procedures, and with the intention of allowing students to vote. There may have been a couple other small changes, but that never got officially passed through the trustees. So this came up when we were appointing Luca a couple weeks ago, and so we need to make that a document official. Since then, Neil pointed out a couple inconsistencies with our draft. We did update those in the latest draft, which I shared with you. Another point that Neil brought up was the quorum. If we do have two active student members, we potentially would have 9 commissioners, which would mean we might want to increase our quorum from 4 to 5. So those were a couple of his issues. Maybe he can describe. Let's see. I think you've all seen his letter. Am I missing anything on that?
Leroy, if I remember correctly too, did he suggest that we make the quorum a majority of the members, which because maybe with 9 members that's 5, but let's say we for some reason have a lot of vacancies, so a majority of 7 would be obviously a different number. So I would think that's better than having 5 actually in the procedures. I think you brought that up. And the other thing is he raised the issue of kind of definition. There's this issue of I guess the ordinance says youth, and our recommendation says student, and I was kind of thinking, boy, I don't know if those aren't the same thing anyway, but he did make the issue of, maybe it'd be wise to define what that means. Or maybe it's, I don't know, it seemed kind of obvious to me, but, and I wonder, is it possible to, just throwing out an idea to have basically student or youth, and have both in the, I think for practical purposes, it's the same thing, but any kind of thoughts on definitions? He had suggested for youth, the definition would be 24 or under, I think. Any thoughts from anybody on the commission about his suggestion?
Yeah, this is Tom. I did read Neil's letter. I thought he made some good points. As Leroy has already indicated, some of the references were incorrect originally, and I think those have been corrected already. But yeah, I think he raises a good point about the definition of youth. And I know one definition he mentioned as a possibility would be the age of 15 to 24. That seems kind of reasonable to me. But yeah, I think he does raise a good point that we need to define better what we're actually talking about, whether we use student or youth. And maybe the way to do that is to put an age range in there connected to the definition.
Other thoughts? Okay, Tom, I think those are, that makes sense to me too, that we include a definition there of youth of 15 to 24, I think you said, and thoughts about, what does everybody think about, should we stick with student or go with youth or do both? What does everybody think?
Did I miss that, or was it, do we know, is there a minimum age for formal appointment as a regular member of the commission or any other public body? Do you have to be 21? Has it?
I doubt it. I'm sure there's some age. Yeah.
They don't necessarily need to be exclusive groups, but if they're not, I'm not sure I understand the, yeah.
Yeah, I think the suggestion was just to make it real clear, Bill or anybody, should we be consistent with the ordinance, which is youth, or be consistent with our original recommendation? I always thought it was students that were, and obviously there's some value with having connections to the school. We could make it seeing some value with connected to the schools, and youth is most likely everybody's in school. I guess one way to do it would be to make it basically a student, and that would be defined as somebody in public or private school or college or university between the ages of 15 and 24. Maybe I'm making it too complicated.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes. So the purpose before of having youth student members that were non-voting, but then we made them voting, right? So now we're kind of debating, we're looking at 15 to 24. So let's say it's somebody that was 23 years old, but they were resident of Meridian Township, were not enrolled in a university or college or whatever, right? Where do they fall in? Do they fall in under regular member? Do they fall in under this youth member? And do we really need distinction? Or do we want to just say that at least 2 members, now that we've got a larger group, that at least 2 members, or we reserve 2 seats for youth between the ages of 15 to 24, irrespective of whether they're enrolled in any educational institution.
Yeah, that seems pretty clear cut to me. Does anybody have any, do we need to vote on this? Well, let me, Susan has made a suggestion. If people support that, why don't you raise your hand? I don't know if we, Leroy, are you?
What are we voting on?
Yeah. Did we get enough, Leroy? You counting hands?
I wasn't. Can you do that again, folks?
Okay. Yeah, I guess the change for our procedures would be basically to have it reserving 2 spots. These would be voting spots for youth as defined between the ages of 15 and 24. Who thinks that's a good idea?
And then just take out at the end the educational institution. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're just.
It's likely there'll be students. Tom?
Sorry, I was just actually trying to vote again. I wasn't sure if we were still voting or not, but yeah, that seems reasonable to me. I think, it's probably a good idea that not to have it defined specifically to an institution, because like Neil said in his letter, you could have somebody from Hazlet, somebody from Okemos, but what if you didn't have somebody that was interested from one of the school districts? So to me, it does make more sense just to leave it more broad and say 2 members, 2 youth members between 15 and 24, no matter what institution or where they happen to be from.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we got support for that change. Leroy, do you need anything else from us to kind of before we move this to the township board?
I don't think so. I'd be happy to submit just a slightly revised draft, and just if anyone would like to look at that. Did I? Let's see. I think I got everybody that voted. So we should be set.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Next on our list is the letter from Curtis Armbruster about the Nakoma drain. Leroy, do you want to just summarize that briefly?
Actually, Bill had some thoughts about this. Bill, would you mind doing the summary and response?
I don't mind offering my response if you could start with a summary of the communication, and I can respond from there.
Okay, I don't have it up on my screen, but basically there was a resident in the Lake Lansing watershed, if you will, is concerned about a drain project, the Nakoma drain project, that he perceived as taking water out of the watershed. And due to the fact that the lake has had some drought conditions over the last few years, he was concerned that we would actually, it could be a negative impact. And so he was wondering who was making the decision, what the timeline was, how the decision was made, and things like that. Bill, who's been involved perhaps with this project before, had some insights that I think you'll want to hear.
Well, actually, I simply went to do a little homework on it and came across a notice that's posted on the township website about the work. And my understanding of that explanation on the township website is that this is an Ingham County drain project. And I remember hearing about this previously, and that its purpose is not to drain water into Lake Lansing. It's actually to drain water away from Lake Lansing. That's its whole purpose, is to avoid flooding in the lake by putting too much stormwater into the lake. So I think it's increasing the capacity as it goes westward, if I'm not mistaken. So the concern that increasing the capacity of the system would lead to flooding in Lake Lansing is the opposite of the intended purpose of the project. And if the resident who contacted us has a question about it, that's really a question for the Drain Commissioner's office, who is implementing the project.
Okay, any other further thoughts on the letter or the issue? Bill, I guess I got a question. Is it your understanding then that the letter is hypothesizing about a situation that wouldn't happen, that the way it would be done, you really wouldn't be taking water away from Lake Lansing? Or don't we know? I mean, to me, I kind of read the letter, and obviously it's beyond my understanding whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, and it's not within our authority anyway.
I'm going to post a link to the message on the notice posted on the township's website, and it's actually from the Ingham County Drain Commissioner's office. And if I interpret the letter we received and this notice correctly, the residents' concern is exactly what the project is trying to avoid happening.
Okay.
And I believe it's appropriate for staff to direct the person who communicated with us to this message.
Roy, it sounds like it ball's in your court, and could you communicate with him that we've discussed the issue and then make the reference that Bill suggested?
Yeah, just to clarify.
I believe there was a hydrologic study done probably about 4 years ago. I don't know whether it's awkward, whether it's the streets are the same. And I don't know how much how much intersection there is between that hydrologic study, because it was back when I was leading 495, the capstone design, and one of the projects that we did was on the Namoka drain, and so I know at that point there was a hydrologic study done. It's probably maybe worth, if it's possible, if it's related, to provide that hydrologic study. If it's available and can be put in the public domain, so that they know that there was a hydrologic study done. And I'm gonna guess it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, because it's been a while since I've been lead on 495.
I have a little something I can add. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
There's actually at least 2 or possibly 3 districts that overlap. One is the watershed, one is the assessment district, the other one is the Lake Lansing benefit district. And I think what the Armbruster letter refers to is that the drainage district is somehow interfering with the lake. I kind of read it a little differently than Bill did. I read that he was thinking that we were going to be that the drain commissioner was going to be draining the lake rather than adding to it and flooding it. Either way, the watersheds are actually very different. The Namoka watershed, even though it does drain away, it drains across, what is it, Haslet Road? No, not Haslet Road. Drains across the road into the Mud Creek drain, which also drains Lake Lansing. So but they come from different perspectives, and they join right off of the road. And so the Drain Commission, what this drain is doing is not depriving the lake of anything nor putting anything in. Fact is, the Drain Commission has purchased, I think, 3 or 4 properties in that Namoka village, they call it, and they're using those properties to hold water. And they're not releasing it into Lake Lansing, nor are they draining it from Lake Lansing. It's very interesting that the watershed is, just a stone's throw away from Lake Lansing. But what I understand is that the water that lands there, following the watershed philosophies, the water does not drain into Lake Lansing, but it drains the other direction. And so, and as I say, there are at least 2 and maybe more districts that overlap. And so the people in that Namoka would probably pay taxes on Lake Lansing benefits, but they also have a drain that they are responsible for paying for too. It's a complicated thing, and I believe, Roy, did you not get? What you've got something that's got Jonas's name on it. I'm looking at it. In fact, it was from Boyer to Jonas today. It describes something about these 2 or 3 different assessments, different districts that are there. And I think that would be very good to have a look at. I can't see who all it went to.
I didn't see it, but
I have a water district map of the Namoka Drain if you want to.
Yeah, it would
Me
be
to show
great
it.
to see that, Susan, if you have it.
I just need if somebody can let me share my screen and I will show it to you.
you should be able to share your screen, Susan.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Should be a map of Lake Lansing. And so the project that we worked on 5 so years ago, it was focused on improvements because of the flooding in the subdivision here. And I know that they were doing work on basically to improve on the drain at that point in time. So this is the Namoka drain. It doesn't drain. This area drains here, and then it goes off to the west this way. And then over, I forget exactly, but over there's to the Pine Lake drain, I think, over this way. But this is the Namoka drain water district. So it actually crosses, it comes this way north and then crosses over Marsh Road and then connects with the Pine Lake drain.
Thank you. Leroy, do you have enough information now? Maybe you have too much information to respond to the letter?
Yeah, I think so.
Could I pipe in again?
Go ahead.
I went back and looked at that letter more carefully, and I actually had it backwards. Jim is right about the complaint. I also found the packet for our October 5th, 2016 meeting. where the Namoka drain was discussed. And there are diagrams and project documents in that meeting packet.
Leroy, would you,
And that would have been about the right time because we were doing the project in 2015, so it was around that.
So I
There was a
think
wetland use permit that we reviewed at our October 5, 2016 meeting.
Thank you for your research. This is great news, and I think the person will be happy to hear this information. So,
Leroy, could you share your letter with, certainly Susan and Bill and Jim, but maybe the whole commission, just so we kind of know what communication is going on?
sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. I think the next one's due. We're on to old business related to the audit. You gave us quite an attachment today, Leroy, for the work that's has been done already. So it looks like we're making progress. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I also received another update from Cliff asking him to sort of distill his findings. He was able to join us at our green networking session this morning, and we spent most of the time talking about the Tacoma Hills potential project, but he did give a nice overview of his progress. And basically, let me pull up his email real quickly, but if I could just distill it, that he says that there's some low-hanging fruit for our green infrastructure review. Basically, he said he finds very little, if any, language related to green infrastructure in our current code of ordinances. So just including some terminology and examples of green infrastructure as well as definitions would be a first major step to just share with people, developers, builders, that we're interested in encouraging it. Let me see if I can bring up a couple other of his points. There's still the extent that we go through this green infrastructure audit is still, it's kind of up to how much energy we have, because there's a lot of opportunities for refining, defining, encouraging, setting examples and levels and that type of thing. Oh, let me just see here if I can find it. It's going to take me a while to dig it up, but
Then now, Lori, does this, I remember some mention from Cliff that, there's some work that needs to be done by staff at the township because there's some things obviously he doesn't know about. Has Cliff kind of finished his part of the project?
no, it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
He shared the working document with us, and I think that basically the next step is for those who would like to participate in this to maybe open it up, take a look. It doesn't actually start until page 19 or something like that. But it's a fairly simple checklist. I found his most recent email. First one I mentioned, ensure that green stormwater infrastructure and associated terms are defined in the code. Utilize purpose statements to make your GSI or green stormwater infrastructure priorities known to developers and homeowners. And then add language that offers flexibility in exchange where green infrastructure is appropriate. After that is the harder technical stuff. Let's see.
Maybe
so that was his brief summary.
Maybe commission members who have an interest in the time can kind of look at this draft between now and the next meeting, and we can kind of discuss it at the next meeting again and kind of see where we're at.
That sounds good. I think, yeah, Cliff and Teresa Lark with MidMiac will have more of a chance to complete their work. I would encourage those of you who are interested to take a look at what he's done and look at this document and maybe share it with others that may be interested.
Super. Good, but we're making good progress. And next, the tree initiative.
I was just going to point out there is the checklist bit that starts on page 19 of that PDF. But if you get down towards the bottom, what you'll see is a table. It starts on page page 59 of the PDF, page 60. And they've actually started going through the code and searching for keywords and putting in some specific notes on those key areas. So there's quite a bit of meat there for that group to chew on. Sorry, vegetarians.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Well, on to the tree initiative, Jim.
Tree, did you say tree issue?
Yeah, the tree initiative is next on our agenda. Do you want to give us an update?
There hasn't really been anything accomplished. I believe Michelle provided some data, and I think Leroy has put in, has given us a handout on what's there and what might be available. And it looks like there's a plan that could spend the entire amount that the board is allotting for us. But I don't think we didn't have a meeting that I missed. Did we, Leroy?
No, I think one of the intentions of mine tonight is to set up our next meeting, but also Michelle has some updates. She's been sort of fleshing out some of the details, and I've been having some conversations with the farmers market director. So maybe we could just briefly share that update and then schedule a meeting of the tree team sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Michelle, would you care to share your efforts to move forward on this?
Yeah, so I think where we left off was talking about, how, distribution at farmers markets. We were talking about maybe working with some schools and neighborhoods, what kind of trees we were interested in. What hadn't happened at the last time we discussed this was seeing what was actually available from the nurseries. And I have since inquired, and so the Conservation District, we order conifers every fall, and we have our, conifer fundraising sale. And that's, it's a good time to plant those types of trees. I had not tried to pursue deciduous trees at this time of year before. It's not as popular. And the reason why is that you have to basically wait for the trees to go dormant before you can take them out of the ground from the nursery. And that pushes the timeline back pretty far into the year. Some nurseries were quoting me end of October to mid-November, which I can't imagine anybody planting trees in mid-November. So I don't think that's a reasonable plan. But I think if we were satisfied with just distributing evergreens or planting evergreens, that's not an issue at all. I've confirmed that there's plenty available. I think we talked about maybe doing a 1 to 1.5 foot size tree. It's substantial, but also easy to manage and distribute. And someone did point out that if you give someone a conifer tree, it actually looks like a tree. Whereas if you give someone, an oak seedling, it just looks like a stick. Those of us who love to grow things, can appreciate it, but conifers might have more mass appeal. There might be something to that. So yeah, I just, it's kind of up to what, how you guys want to how you want to organize this event, but I'm happy to help any way I can.
One thing that I kind of like to have us throw into this mix. I've had someone who listened to one of our previous sessions suggest that if we give away trees, we're giving away things that are never going to grow. I would like us, if we could, to have people who take trees, let us know where they are and find some way that we can get a report for a couple of years. I don't know. I'm not sure how we do that. I've tried it down in Detroit, utter failure. But it would be awfully nice if we knew, let's say we give away 500 trees, you know, and we're real happy with ourselves. Oh, we gave away 500 trees. But how many of them are still growing in 2 or 3 or 4 years? It's a good feeling to give away the trees and have people plant them, but to me, it's a much better feeling to know that they're growing. And I just hope maybe we can find some way to have a little bit of a follow through on what is happening.
I would think if you were working with a neighborhood or a school, that would be pretty doable. If it's just, you know, residents from around the township, I think that would be a challenge.
Even with a school, as I've said in one of our first meetings, as a kid in grade school, I remember we were trying to make my city a redbud city. And if I go back there, I see very few redbuds. And I know there were a lot of them given out.
Well, the other thing that I know other groups have done is they, you know, they charge just a little bit, 50 cents or $1 for a tree. I know they'll do that with students because they found a lot of trees weren't, you know, they're giving them to everybody and not everybody was into planting a tree or had a place to plant a tree. So if they just put in a little something, a little skin in the game, they figured they were more likely to actually get in the ground. But I don't know what that does to your budget if you did something like that.
I think my thought was if we're going to be in communication at all with the people who get the trees, if we have their email, we can at least reach out to them once a year and say, hey, can you give us an update? And, you know, the people you don't hear back from are probably the ones that didn't survive, but at least, you know, that might be one. Yeah. It does impose a follow-up burden probably on staff, so it's not necessarily trivial.
But if it is on email, that could be a mass email sent to everybody who got one and ask them for a response back. That sounds like a pretty good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. The other issue about the availability of the trees is that it pushes our distribution back a month or so. And the farmers market does operate Wednesday and Saturday through October. So we do have a few weeks, perhaps as many as 12 opportunities to distribute at the market. So
were we talking about bare root evergreens or evergreens in pots?
Bare root, I believe, is what Michelle was talking about.
That's what I'm used to procuring. I don't know as many places that do them in pots. I think it gets expensive pretty fast.
Yeah.
And what's the plan with working with Okemos and Haslett schools again?
I need to get an update. One of the issues there is who's going to maintain, water the trees. The places we've identified are fairly potentially dry. So that still remains to be seen. Obviously, with schools going virtual, we might rely on Luca to recruit some students to assist on in the fall with those. We were talking about bigger trees. Jim had found a source for those. I think we've got a supplier. Michelle had included those in her budget, but exactly how those trees are going to be maintained still remains up in the air.
So we're still working on it with both school districts?
That's the plan. Obviously, that's been a little chaotic for them making decisions on how to open. So it's been hard to get their attention, but
Sure.
I did have a communication with the facilities director, and she reminded the superintendent or the main property manager that we are at Okemos, that we are still interested. No word from Hazlitt yet.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about the tree initiative? Okay,
Michelle, thanks for joining us, Michelle. And don't feel like you have to stick around, but you're welcome to.
I had one little comment. When you were talking about the green infrastructure, I worked with the city of Leslie a few years ago on a mini grant to support green infrastructure in the city, and we didn't end up being funded, but it looks like it's still an opportunity. It existed at least last year. This year everything's a little strange, but it's up to $15,000, and it can help you go through the code updates and ordinances work that needs to be done, or do actually on the ground work. It's pretty flexible. I don't know if that's something that the group would be interested in, but I could share the website if you'd like.
Definitely.
Okay,
Sounds
I'll do
great.
that before I sign off today. And we'll just stay in touch about moving forward on this.
Sounds good. I'll send out an email trying to get a time when we can all meet. Does anybody have any preference of daytime versus evening? Who's on the tree team? I guess that would be Bill, Rose,
Flexible.
Jim.
Flexible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
moving on to future green theme presentations, and one thing that might be an opportunity for us is the August 11th regional sharing, because we may be able to identify some local communities that might do a green theme presentation for us in the future. That remains to be seen, I guess, until we kind of hear what folks have to say on August 11th. Roy, did you have any, is this just an open inquiry for ideas?
It's just an ongoing agenda item. So yeah, any ideas or suggestions at any time are welcome. We don't always have time for a green theme. We've had pretty full agendas for the last few months, but we've talked about environmental justice. Susan's been doing some research on that, and Rose as well. And then Cliff Walls has also offered to present as we move forward on this green infrastructure project. But any ideas are welcome. Emma Campbell has also been suggested as a potential speaker.
Since we're virtual, what about, we've had the solar array tours, any possibility of doing something like that virtual? What about, get a neighbor that has a massive butterfly garden, native plant garden? Actually, talk to him. He'd be willing to give a tour as a virtual green themes tour of what he did. I don't know. Can we use the fact that we're virtual in some respects to our benefit to do something that we normally couldn't do? Tour of the water treatment plant.
Great ideas. Yeah. Luca, do you have any, you're kind of the new.
I'm thinking a lot about this with class. What can I do differently that I couldn't do normally that,
I attended a webinar the other day that was about sustainable transportation, and the guy who led the webinar gave a tour of a neighborhood in the Netherlands that was purposely designed, and he just put one of those 360-degree view cameras on the back of his bike with a broomstick, and then he narrated his recording, and it was brilliant.
But this is how we're going to do labs. We're going to record, we're going to use GoPro cameras and record labs so that students can see the lab.
So where do you get
So
the
why can't we do
360?
the same thing? Do a tour of the water treatment plant, do a tour of a native garden, do a tour of
Yeah.
solar array, whatever, things we couldn't do or wouldn't even think of doing in normal.
Where do you
Here.
get the 360-degree cameras?
Home TV has one.
I want
If,
one on my bike.
As a commissioner, and if you're trained, you could probably borrow home TVs.
Well, and this is kind of obvious, you know, one advantage with going virtual is we, you know, in the past, we've always kind of thought in terms of you want somebody who's a reasonable distance so that, you know, traveling to the township hall is not a burden. Literally now, if we have a contact somewhere, we could have somebody zoom in from anywhere in the world and give us a green team presentation. So that really opens it up.
all the way to the Netherlands.
Hey, Samantha, do you think home
That's what I'm
TV
marketing to my students as the benefit of.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if Samantha's still with us, but is that 360 camera gotten much use yet?
Sam is still with us, but she does not have a microphone down there. So I'll have her touch base with you later, Leroy, to see what the availability of that might be.
Thank
Oh,
you,
I guess
Stephen.
the way we should leave this is, you know, if any of us have specific ideas, pass them on to Leroy. The specific speakers and the specific topics. Okay, let's see. Well, I guess we're moving on to the chair's report. I don't really have anything to report this month, and that brings us up to the staff report.
I think it's page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in your document is a written update. We covered a lot of this already. The tree initiative, the green infrastructure audit, procedures. Kind of an ongoing reminder. We are looking to use social media for outreach and promotion. So if you have story ideas to post on Green Meridian or even the Meridian Township Facebook, Instagram pages, particularly if you have interest and are fairly active on social media, we're always looking for ideas. And Luca, you're probably more active, or your generation is more active than most of us. So maybe you can give us some ideas of how we can make better use of this, rather than just sort of random postings by me. I'd like to have a partner was really good at this, and Home TV is pretty good, but they need our help in identifying opportunities for newsworthy items. Do you have any thoughts you want to share right this minute?
Nothing much. Still kind of new to all this, so trying to settle in, understand everything. But no, but I can probably get some people. I know a couple people who are very interested in the helping of the environment and whatnot. So yeah.
Great. Other things, we're still working out details for the electronics event, our fall recycling event. The state is offered to co-sponsor, but there's still a number of things up in the air. And this is the latest our planning has been in a while, partly because of COVID, partly because of funding a regional recycling event for electronics. So we'll hopefully know more by the end of the week on whether that's a go, and keep you posted on that. Tomorrow is an exciting day because it's the deadline for bids for our new solar arrays, and so we're hoping to get a few bids trickling in for that, and even installed this by November 1st. So those are the main items on in my update. If you have any questions, let me know.
Where will they be going?
We're looking at the new market on the green,
Oh.
and also the South Fire Station. South Fire Station has a lot more need. This farmer's marketplace on the green is going to be bigger than, obviously a lot more use than the pavilion where market used to be, but still not a lot of electric use. Estimating that has been a challenge, but anywho, yeah, this is just the the next step. We hope to do more the following year with a power purchase agreement or other efforts that our energy team has been working on.
And on the market, will they be on the roof, just like kind of like the MSU parking structures or parking lots?
Given the demand, it'll probably be a much smaller system. We had originally envisioned 20 kilowatt system similar to the town hall, but it doesn't look like the market will be able to use that much. So we're hoping the contractors will get creative to maximize the solar usage for both facilities. So perhaps as high as 30 kilowatts on the south fire, maybe from a 2 to a 10 kilowatt system on the either the south wall or south roof, or possibly even the restrooms.
Well, thank you, Leroy.
Thanks, John.
And we're on to, Leroy's going to give us an update on the environmental justice. We just had a meeting prior to this board meeting or commission meeting.
Okay, before I do that, I just want to put a quick plug in, going back to something we were talking about before, GoPro cameras and things of that sort. You can take those out from the library, from the Okemos Public Library. They have a tools and resources library there. You can get infrared cameras to look at building performance. You can get all kinds of cool stuff. Just wanted to put that out there while I was thinking about it. But as far as environmental justice goes, we are pumped. We are excited. We started out speaking with Regina Strong, who's an environmental justice advocate. I don't have her specific title. That's kind of where this group got going. We then drafted the resolution on declaring racism a public health. But after that, we kind of were left wondering, well, what are our action items now? Where do we go from here? So when we were just meeting, we talked about how maybe we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but maybe support local groups that are already involved with environmental justice, join on and support their effort. So we're going to reach out to several different groups in town, the Michigan Environmental Council, some student groups at MSU, Islamic Center, community gardens. If anybody has any other additional places you think we ought to reach out to, please let us know. We also talked a little bit about current events and what's going on. The federal government is trying to do away with, or maybe did do away with, the Furthering Fair Housing Act of 2015, which basically was an act that provided tools and support for carrying out the obligations of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. So that's kind of a big deal. So we were talking about redlining and looking at maps and looking at issues of systemic racial injustice locally. So we talked a lot about different people we could reach out to and resources we could look at there. And then we talked a little bit about our accomplishments so far. So we did come up with this mission statement or resolution. We have been doing quite a bit of networking and reaching out. We do a lot of webinars and things that people can access. We did the Solar Meridian project with the Islamic Center. So just continuing those types of things. And then we wanted to ask Courtney what the board's thoughts were on these issues. I'll leave it there.
Hi, can you hear me? Great job, Rose. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you guys are moving forward. We are also we have declared and it was passed a equity and inclusion task force that Pat Jackson and myself and Trustee Opsimer are leading. And the idea of this task force is to bring folks together so we can come up with an equity and inclusion plan for the entire community, not just our staff at throughout the Meridian Township, but throughout the community as well. So we've been working with the HR director, Joyce Marks, and also just starting very, very initial thoughts on who should be involved in this task force. And I really think certainly somebody from, Environmental Commission and, specifically Rose, if you're the lead on this project, would be a fantastic person to join this task force, so that we have this cohesive conversation that's happening throughout. So I know the board would 100% support all of the environmental justice efforts that you're working in, and also I think it will complement all the other equity and inclusion efforts that we want to take into the community. We understand this is a conversation, this is a dialogue, this doesn't happen overnight, and we want to be very intentional, and we'll likely, there's been a lot of talk, and we think it's probably a really good idea to bring in an outside entity that's experts in this, so that we can get some structured, planning as well. So I don't know if that answered your question, but we're working side by side right now. So I think there's just really a lot of opportunity for both groups at the township level, but at the environmental justice level too, to make some really good progress.
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful for us to kind of know where the township is at with that task force and kind of moving ahead. So yeah, that's good. That's good news. Great news. And then the next on the agenda is the Sustainable Development Study Group. But now I'm kind of thinking that's really the green infrastructure audit, or is something else going on related to the study group?
We were looking at that audit as sort of the first step, but simultaneously there are kind of opportunities or amendments, timely issues that we want to sort of stay in touch with. Anybody else want to add anything?
Okay. And the tree team, we've already talked about the initiative. So is there anything related to a tree team, Leroy, that we haven't discussed?
Nothing I'm aware of, just be trying to set up the next meeting. Okay.
And then we're into our committee and trustee reports. And Courtney, this is an opportunity for you to kind of tell us all the great things going on at the Board of Trustees.
It's been busy. As you know, campaign and voting was yesterday, so the results are in. So good news is I get to be your board liaison for another 4 years.
And I saw, congratulations, if I'm not mistaken, you got more votes than anybody else, right?
It's election, so that was very surprising. But I had a tremendous amount of help from, we ran as a team, and so I couldn't have done it with all the help. But as the results show, yes, as of now, but we're all very close. So I think that's really good. We, all 4 trustees will stay the same. Of course, our supervisor and our treasurer ran unopposed, so they got 99% of the votes. There were some write-ins apparently. And then, but one change will happen is that our current clerk Dreyfus did not win the election, so we'll have a new clerk come November. So clerk Deborah Guthrie, who used to be our communications director for the township for 27 years. So she's got a tremendous amount of experience, and we're really excited on some of her plans and transitions in the clerk's office. So that's really good news. I wanted to go back to the green theme idea, and I was going to put this in an email to John and Leroy, but I had talked to a resident about it was a complaint for a neighbor in wetland ordinance, but out of that conversation came that she's really well versed. She's done her research on both the state wetland ordinances as well as Meridian Township has some additional ordinance to strengthen the state law. But she has a resident's perspective And she's got a tremendous amount of knowledge, and she wanted to present to the board her knowledge on wetlands and how they, the ordinance in Meridian Township. And I thought this group might be a better initial audience for her. I don't know if that's something that you guys want to look into. I can certainly make that connection for you. But she does have a lot of perspective and a lot of knowledge, and she's a social worker. So she comes from a different background too. So I wanted to put that out there that I've been talking to her and working with her on this other issue, but she's got some things to offer. So that could be an idea.
Personally, I think that's a great idea for us to kind of to put on the agenda for a decent amount of time. One of the residents who's kind of been doing research and has some ideas to share. I think personally that would be something we would want to pursue. Does other folks have any thoughts about? My kind of initial reaction is Courtney should go for it and contact the individual. What does everybody think?
In principle, that would have fallen into public remarks anyway. So, I mean, in principle, we're here to listen to citizens' interests. And so I don't see why not.
Yeah, public remarks are usually kind of fairly short, or can be short.
No, I know, but I'm just saying if the public wanted to come and share thoughts.
I will, I can make that connection, and John, John and Leroy, should I have her work through you after I make that connection?
Sure, through Leroy, yep.
Okay.
To clarify, are you talking a green theme, a 20-minute presentation with Q&A, or more of just a more informal presentation and discussion?
I had explained to her what the green theme was, and that, it is a presentation, and, it's a little bit more formal, and she said that she was willing. So I said I would bring it up at the next commission. So I'm thinking that that's the route she would potentially go, but that might be more conversation we can have.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Let's see. Anything else, Courtney, or?
I think that's it. Thank you.
And let's see, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to tell you. We met on July 17th, I guess it was. And it was a very brief meeting because the entire content was focused on, well, that's not quite true. The majority of the content was just agreeing to not worry too much about the fact that the outlines of the project down at the corner of Okemos and Jolly had been slightly drawn wrong. So there was something like $5,000 worth of taxable value that hadn't been properly included in the analysis of the program. So that very small amendment to the Brownfield plan down there was that simply needed to be discussed and okayed, and that was the major function of the meeting. We did have a little bit more discussion about the upcoming project on the gas station at the corner of Lake Lansing Road and of Hazlitt Road and Marsh. Just that's moving along. No particular substantial new developments. And then Township Manager Walsh was talking about questions, just sort of broadly came up about how come Okemos Center, the project down at Hamilton and Okemos was sort of appearing to be stalled, and various questions came along, and he was basically saying we're in the process of trying to negotiate with the builders to keep the project rolling along despite COVID and so forth. And so there weren't a lot of answers. There were a lot of questions. Why is that project just sitting there dead and so forth? And so he's pursuing that, and I think we'll get more interesting information in our next meeting.
Thank you, Ned. related to the energy team, Lori's mentioned about the bids coming in, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he had 7 companies at the walkthrough audit. So I think we can be very optimistic that we'll get a number of bids, which would be a great situation, so we can make some comparisons with the best kind of approach and most experienced contractor. And the you know, we have planned virtual solar home tour for October, and have a number of township residents who have already done presentations and that have been recorded. That'll be part of a virtual solar home tour this October, and we have additional presentations that are planned. So that's kind of moving along at a good pace too. And let's see, we're on to the green team.
I think I've given a pretty much update on the recycling event. We haven't met in a few weeks, so we need to really set up another meeting. If any of you are interested in joining our green team that helps coordinate the event, let me know. We also have a sort of a semi-related group, and that's the Green Conversations on Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock every week. And if you'd like to join us on that, that's more of an informal conversation about anything you're interested in talking about. I can send you the link if you want to be on that email list. I did have one quick thought just for Tom Frazier. I don't know if we want to add township related environmental topics to our monthly updates or not, but I just, because he's sort of got the inside scoop on legislation that might be impact us, or that we should keep our heads up, we can maybe add that as Tom sees fit. But just throwing that out there as a, because my update is so short. That's all I have.
Good idea. Tom, does that sound like something you would be interested in doing? And maybe sometimes there isn't any much news, but other times I know things are kind of moving ahead and different environmental issues that might be relevant to us.
Sure, I can, you know, plan to do that. And as you indicated, if there isn't anything, then it will be short and sweet. But if there is, I can try to give a brief report on that.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
And then we got the Land Preservation Advisory Board. Jim?
Yeah, I have to apologize. You caught me a couple of moments ago with the tree initiative. I was accustomed to seeing it down in this group. And when you called me before, you caught me unaware. But I think we recovered. The land pres, we had our last meeting the week after our last meeting here. We had it face to face in the pavilion near where the farmers market is now at the township. And we had a somewhat successful meeting. We even had a couple of visitors come to see us, but so we've had a face-to-face. If anyone would like to participate in another face-to-face meeting, the Land Pres is going to meet at North Meridian Park next Wednesday, 6 o'clock. And then we're going to walk over to, oh my goodness, we're going to go over to park that's very near there. One of the land pres that is very near to that, it's called the Foster Krause Preserve, where there's a wetland, and not only is it a wetland, but it's a way to get from here to there, and bikes are wanting to use it. There's generally the discouragement of developed paths in the land pres, but the person from there came to us at the last meeting and wanted to know about improving it somewhat to keep bicycles off of the main roads. So we're gonna have our meeting starting at the park and going over there. So that's August 12th, 6 p.m. at North Meridian Park, which happens to be at 519 Meridian Road, if anybody is not aware of it. There was also the Land Pres and Emma Campbell had a first environmental stewardship workshop last Saturday at the Davis Foster Preserve, mostly to cut out autumn olive. I didn't get a chance to go, so I don't know what they accomplished, and I haven't heard from her yet. Of course, I only started trying this afternoon, so can't expect her to answer me immediately. That gives an idea. The last meeting we talked about some things about wetland banking, the possibility that Grand River State Highway Department is talking about, and I don't know whether this is all real or in the planning or dreaming phase yet, but there was going to be some thought about raising Grand River to avoid the flooding in the vicinity of Okemos Road and Grand River, which every heavy rain we get flooding there. So they're talking about that, and if they do, there's gonna be some landfill go on, and the township and state will need some place for wetland mitigation, and we're looking at the possibility of some sections in our land preserves. So that was another thing we came up with. So that's about what I can tell you about Land Pres. We'll be meeting next Wednesday evening.
Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
On to the Planning Commission. Bill?
Yeah, the Planning Commission met on July 13 and July 27. The main business during those meetings has really concerned rezoning, and I don't see any particular environmental issues or concerns arising from them. I mentioned one last time, a business expanding in Hazlet and a couple of buildings being built. There's still some ongoing discussion around stormwater stemming from the ANDEV proposal to build the senior housing component on the Hannah Farms. And I expect that that discussion will continue. I believe the second part of that, the building over 25,000 square feet, was headed to the board. I don't know if that's come up. I had heard informally that there was some discussion by board members with residents who had reached out to the Planning Commission on some of those stormwater issues. So it sounds like there's some open dialogue, and I'll be interested to hear the follow-up on that. The only other issue that I think might be worthy of note is on our tentative agenda for August 10th is a planned unit development application for something called Silverleaf. Is a 150 detached single-family homes on approximately 94 acres located on the north side of Bennett Road, west of Hewlett. That I believe came to the Planning Commission previously, or it was before the board, because I heard about it, but before I was on the Planning Commission, so I'll need to get up to speed on that one. If I could go back briefly to green teams, those Wednesday morning discussions I think have been really fruitful, and I'm very grateful to Roy for organizing those. The discussion recently, including this morning, has focused again on green stormwater stuff. In this instance, we're talking about a sort of neighborhood scale effort that looks like it could get some support from the Drain Commissioner's office to consider different ways of managing a neighborhood level detention, retention, pond facility. And then thinking more broadly about other neighborhoods in the township that also have neighborhood association standing water that they're managing oftentimes with herbicides to combat algal growth promoted by overabundance of geese. And right now the conversation is turning not just on some assistance from the drain commissioner's office, but also potentially going after what's called some 319 monies that are federal dollars that come through the DEQ for stormwater management, and sort of looking at best management practices in the Red Cedar River watershed that occupies most of the township, and trying to look at something more broadly. A big trick in applying for those state monies is a matching requirement. And so that's what we're kind of wrestling with at the moment. We've got some great ideas, and actually, I'm curious to see whether what Michelle put in our chat window about the Champions mini grants, whether that might be an opportunity to generate some matching funds. But I know our Parks Department has been absolutely stellar in going after grants. So I'm hoping to tap them to kind of work into some of this stuff. That's what I got.
Super, thank you. And now, Transportation Commission, Bill, are you doing that, or?
I reported on their last meeting and they have not met since. I'm very anxious to hear as conversations develop around the M43 reconstruction. And that partly goes back to what we were just talking about with the flooding at Grand River and Okemos, but more from the transportation side, but I don't have any further information on that.
Okay. Well, we're at the end of our agenda. Another opportunity for public comment. I don't know if anybody has kind of called in, and obviously it's an opportunity for any of us to make any further comments too. Do we have any individual that would like to make public comment? Apparently not. Okay. Is any of the commissioners would you like to have any final thoughts before we adjourn? Okay, didn't see any hands. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, Jim, did you want to make a motion or say something?
So move, adjourn.
Oh, okay, second. Okay, there's all in favor. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
Yep.